Hi, everyone. I'm Roxanne Vargas. Welcome to this special edition of Six in the Mix, previewing the Adrian Arts Center's 2015-2016 Broadway season. Celebrating a decade of amazing Broadway performances, the Adrian Arts Center has some of the best productions here in Miami. And if you've been to one of the shows there, then you know just how great the experience is. And if you haven't, well, we take you there right now.
With 500 performances each year, the Adrian Arts Center has become South Florida's preferred performing arts center. And you can bet there's something for everyone.
We're really proud to be entering our milestone 10th anniversary season at the Adrian Arts Center. It's been a decade of excellence. Along with our partners at Bank of America, we've had more than 50 different shows that have come through our doors for over the 10 years. We've had nearly 800,000 people come through our doors to see Broadway shows over those 10 years.
The Arts Center is most notably known for its Broadway in Miami series, bringing an exceptional lineup of new shows, family favorites, and Tony Award winners straight from Broadway to South Florida for all of us to enjoy.
It's a real privilege for the audiences here in Miami to have the opportunity to see all the great shows of Broadway without having to travel to New York. In the comfort of staying at home, we bring all the best of the touring Broadway shows right here to your home in Miami.
The Adrian Arts Center is one of the largest performing arts centers in the U.S. And it's not only becoming a fan favorite for big Broadway performances, but a favorite for the performers as well.
All the touring shows love this theater. They always want to come back. In fact, many have over the years, touring with various different shows. All the singers and actors love performing in this space.
The 2,400-seat Ziff Ballet Opera House gives audience goers an intimate experience and keeps you close to all the action on stage, no matter where you're sitting in the theater.
For a lot of the shows that happen here at the Ziff Ballet Opera House, the audience really connects with the cast. A lot of the elements of the performances really come into the audience. It's an immersive experience. Every seat is terrific. Even in the last row of the orchestra level, you feel like you're really close to the stage.
And that tradition continues with an exciting lineup of Broadway musicals coming to the Arts Center this season.
For audiences who want to see the best in entertainment, it's right here in Miami at the Ziff Ballet Opera House with the Broadway in Miami series. It's the best of costumes, it's the best of lavish sets, it's the best of music. Everyone comes out of here just raving about the experiences that they've had, one of the best experiences of a lifetime.
And if you would like to learn more about the Adrian Arts Center, log on to artscenter.org, where you can purchase tickets, pick your seats, and view upcoming performances.
Kinky Boots. It's about a drag queen who comes to the rescue when a man inherits his father's shoe factory on the brink of bankruptcy. But could the idea of making different footwear save his company?
Inspired by true events, Kinky Boots tells the story about Charlie Price, who inherits his father's failing shoe factory and is looking for a way to save the family business.
No one was buying their shoes anymore. He goes to town, to London, to try and pawn them off the back orders on a friend, and he rescues a woman in the alleyway who's in distress.
Charlie meets this new fashionable person who is a cabaret star named Lola, who gives him an outrageous idea that could help save the company and change both their futures.
In the culmination of a couple of days, he comes back to the factory and asks her to join him in making a kinky boot. He finds his niche market and starts to develop kinky boots for men who have a lot more body weight than women and need a kinky boot for whatever.
As the duo works to produce these boots, it's also giving the factory workers new hope. And this unlikely pair finds that they may have more in common than they originally thought.
The story is really about two guys who meet, who couldn't be from further ends of the spectrum, and realize that they both were failures in their father's eyes. And by coming together and succeeding at making something, they find out who they are, what they believe in, and what they stand for. And so they help each other become men.
The two men discovering that when you change your mind about someone, you can change the whole world. This cheerful story about finding friendship, inspiration, and passion where you least expect it will raise your spirits, too.
Then you have this heartbreaking ballad in the first act where Charlie and Lola are in the bathroom talking about how they both feel like failures, and they come to realize that they're not their father's son. And it's a beautiful ballad about realizing everyone wants to live up to the expectations of their father, but sometimes those are impossible. You have to find a way to be who you are on your own.
Based on the 2005 film with the same name, this show features the book by Tony Award-winning theater legend Harvey Fierstein. But it was his brother who made the suggestion of using Cyndi Lauper for the score.
We work, we write it, we do presentation. We went to Chicago and tried it out of town. Cyn was with me the whole time. And in Chicago, we were having trouble with one song, and I asked her to write a new song. She wrote it for me. I put it into the show that night. But up until the opening night on Broadway, we were sewn at the hip because we were, writing a brand new Broadway musical. And you become very, very close. And when the show is successful, you're in each other's lives a lot.
Listen to what Jerry did to prepare for this production.
It's important and integral to the storytelling, that truth. So I went and hung out in the shoe factories in Northampton and learned how to make a man's shoe from scratch. It's a craft that I have a new respect for, and the people who do that and have done it their entire lives, families and generations. That idea of saving a factory, saving someone's job because they're of value is something that a lot of people in America are really responding to when they see the show.
Kinky Boots is the winner of 6 Tony Awards in 2013 and has 13 nominations, including Best Musical and Best Score. Cyndi Lauper also became the first female solo songwriter to win a Tony. Hear the pop icon score December 8th through December 13th at the Adrian R. Center. Coming up, we chat with the president of Rodgers and Hammerstein about the 50th anniversary of The Sound of Music and how it's shaping the future for other musicals. And it was the soundtrack for our country during a difficult time in history. Find out how Motown was able to bring us all closer and fill our hearts with hope. Plus, hear how the Phantom of the Opera is changing with the times and creating an even better journey for you while experiencing this phenomenal performance. And learn more about these great shows by logging on to arshcenter.org, where you can also purchase your tickets, select your seats, and plan your visit. Stay connected with the Adrian R. Center and tell them which shows you're excited to see. Plus, get the behind-the-scenes scoop on all your favorite shows when you follow them on Instagram and Twitter. Just search at Arsht Center.
One of the things for the 50th anniversary of The Sound of Music is we're doing the original soundtrack album in vinyl. And when this call came in, I said, that's the most retro thing I've ever heard, that vinyl is coming back.
That's Ted Chapin, president and executive director of the American Musical Theater Company, Rodgers and Hammerstein, telling us about the commemorative soundtrack featuring the music from the award-winning musical, The Sound of Music.
As the most successful musical film, winning 5 Academy Awards. Now this cherished play has a few more added scenes, but it is still the very same story you know and love.
For decades, The Sound of Music has been in our hearts, and now a fresh new approach to this classic production is being exclusively directed by 3-time Tony Award winner Jack O'Brien.
The one we're going to do is the one you don't know, the one that goes back to its original roots and has a very interesting insight about the political climate of Austria and Europe during that period of time, what we as Americans felt about it.
Set in Austria on the brink of World War II, this musical tells the story of the Von Trapp family and a nun who becomes the nanny and eventually stepmother. But when the Nazis invade, the whole family is forced to flee to safety.
It's about growing up. It's about falling in love. It's about families. It's about values. It's about freedom. It's about threats. It's about standing up for yourself. It just happens to be all of those. And any 3 of them would be fodder for a pretty good evening of theater. But when you get them all loaded in there, you get The Sound of Music.
The show's original Broadway performance earned it the Best Musical Tony Award.
I think in the film, they took a lot of the Nazi complications and political situations out, a lot of the play away. And that is what has sort of lulled us over the last 20 or 30 years to thinking, well, that's The Sound of Music. That's the one we know.
This was the final collaboration between the legendary team, Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein. It was destined to become the world's most beloved musical.
It kind of rewrote the rules for American musicals. So they just kept writing together. And the fact that they wrote a new musical for Broadway every other year, from 1943 to The Sound of Music in 1959, that's why there's the catalog of shows that exists.
That dynamic duo created the score to this musical. So where do you begin when you evolve the perfect model for a Broadway show?
When you do a new production of a musical that's been around, no matter what it is, The Sound of Music or something else, it's always interesting to see where sensitivities of modern audiences have to be taken into consideration. The original production had pieces of scenery that clunked downstage, and then there would be blackouts, and you'd hear the Lonely Goatherd played with the tuba very loudly. It must have been a very noisy set. And then the next set would roll out. And modern audiences don't like that anymore. They want to keep it going and keep it going.
This remarkable true story may be familiar to us all, but we're now discovering new values in it and falling in love with it as we did the very first time hearing it.
Live actors in a building in front of a live audience is not something you can replicate. You can take pictures of it, you can put it on the internet, you can do all these other things to it, but that experience doesn't change.
There's nothing in the world like it. We sit together in the dark, strangers who come together to what? Hear a story. And then a world opens up on us, and for a while, we forget about ourselves. There's no substitute for it. And when you have a canvas as rich as The Sound of Music, you realize that's what it's for.
Except no substitutions, folks, when it comes to live theater. Experience The Sound of Music at the Adrian Arts Center December 29th through January 3rd. If you log on now to NBC6.com with your mobile device, you'll hear what it was like for Ted to work with the producers who created Lady Gaga's Sound of Music performance at the Oscars. Coming up, he launched the careers of Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, Marvin Gaye, and more. Hear how Berry Gordy did it in Motown with only $800 in his pocket. Plus, we find out what it takes to light a scene in a Broadway musical from the lighting designer for Cabaret.
Welcome back. Motown the Musical is Broadway's record-breaking smash hit that tells the true story behind the music that changed the minds and touched the lives of so many around the world.
This one-of-a-kind sound that hit the airwaves in the late 1950s. It changed our culture forever. This inspiring musical follows Motown founder Berry Gordy's incredible journey from featherweight boxer to heavyweight music executive.
People learn a lot from this. They learn how hard it was. He got $800 of a loan from his family to start the company. It was supposed to be $1,000, and he got $800, and he made it work. You know, it really is American dream. It's not a riches to riches story. Black people did not see themselves on TV the way that they had until Motown Records and the Supremes, the Temptations, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Stevie Wonder. I mean, we had such a big influence on music across America, and it wasn't just our music, it was everybody's music.
Berry launched the careers of Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, and so many more. featuring all the classic songs you love as the whole Motown family fights against the odds to create the soundtrack that changed America.
The Supremes were such icons to women, to black women. This was the first time that we saw ourselves, in glamour, and people realizing that, yes, I have dreams and I can be bigger and better than what I was told I could do before.
At a time when there was so much segregation, but yet everyone could relate to these songs, so it really was a unifying vehicle. Music, I like to say, I truly believe music is the universal language.
We told stories back then, stories that influenced people, that healed people, that encouraged people. And you see that in the costumes too. The costumes kind of tell you how we felt about ourselves.
Feelings that stretched across decades of great music as well as iconic fashion. Wardrobe supervisor for Motown, Heather Yerrick, exclusively shows us the costumes that cast members will be wearing when you see them on stage.
I put us in time order here. We start in 1983, but then we go back to 1938 when Berry Gordy is a young boy. The first dress here is his mother's dress. And then we move forward to the Temptations. This is, again, the mid-60s now, with our lovely chartreuse suit there. And we move forward to the Supremes for Ed Sullivan. Very recognizable dress. Very much in this show we have lots of things that are very close, not identical copies of outfits. And that's one of them that everyone kind of is like, oh yeah, I know that dress. And then the Commodores in their lovely crazy jumpsuits.
Featuring an ensemble cast of more than 40 members performing each night, Heather tells us that there is another orchestrated show backstage.
Basically, myself and my assistant run back and forth around stage, make sure everybody's where they need to be. With 400 costume changes, we are running a lot.
I do a lot of costume changes, a lot of hair changes. There's a show on stage, but there's a huge show going on backstage. We have our different tracks or patterns, and there are a lot of people helping us. Otherwise, we wouldn't make our costume changes into the next scene.
Everything's labeled. Everything has the actor's number, the actor's name, as well as the scene that they get used in.
Featuring 60 of the greatest hits from the Motown music catalog, this dazzling display of music and dance will please fans of all ages. Hear them live on stage in Motown the Musical, February 2nd through the 7th at the Adrienne Arts Center.
For over 25 years, The Phantom of the Opera has been the Broadway musical all other shows are measured up against. And now this timeless story and unforgettable score is making a stop here in South Florida.
Broadway's longest-running hit musical follows a scarred composer. He lives in the basement of the Paris Opera House. He's shut off from the outside world. But this lonely and romantic man creates beautiful music for a young soprano that he falls in love with.
Something happens with the sound of her voice that connects him to her in a way that is unexplainable. And it's like she soothes and heals him. And as a result of that, he goes about sort of making her a project and increasing the genius of her voice. And as a result, he falls in love with her.
The Phantom helps boost this star's fame through his opera. And now a handsome friend from Christine's past enters the picture, which creates havoc for all.
What happens as a result of him realizing her love for Raoul and her fear of him when she discovers his deformity, he goes crazy and he ruins the opera house and puts a lot of lives in danger by releasing a chandelier in the house, which causes utter chaos and increases the fear of who he is.
This world-famous chandelier is an iconic staple during performances. Whether this is your first time experiencing the Phantom or your 20th, this historic set piece will always continue to amuse and surprise you each and every night.
We didn't want to just have a chandelier fall. We wanted complete chaos to ensue, and we wanted to really make it feel as though there's total destruction. So it's a free-falling thing, and it's quite scary. Certainly if you're sitting underneath it, you have no idea what's coming.
Theater technology has evolved. Acclaimed producer Cameron McIntosh and composer Andrew Lloyd Webber, they've created this new production that will not disappoint.
We were able to sort of create a set that allowed us to do some special things with stairs and stuff that would sort of magically appear and do all sorts of things. And you get a real sense of leaving what's above you and taking a journey down into the depths and the bowels of the theatre.
Both romantic and scary, The Phantom of the Opera is a thrilling night of theater with simple yet grand sets and gorgeous costumes.
That mask is on every billboard that you'll ever see it all around the world, and it's certainly become the identity of what Phantom of the Opera represents. From an actor's point of view, though, it is very difficult because as an actor, 90% of your work is your expression, and which is in your face, and of course you cover half of that, and you're putting a sort of porcelain sanitization of something over your face, which only allows you one side to work with.
Based on the 1910 French horror novel of the same name, this classic tale of seduction and despair has won 7 Tony Awards, including Best Musical.
From the moment I sort of first heard that score, it captures so much of the feel of an opera house and the dramatization of what you want to play with it. It's sumptuous, it's romantic, it's powerful, it's edgy and rock and roll in moments, and it's just iconic, to be honest with you.
The Phantom of the Opera became Broadway's longest-running show ever when it overtook the record set by Cats with its 7,486 performance in 2006. More than 140 million people have seen The Phantom of the Opera on stage, and now you can too. Take in the experience February 24th through March 6th at the Adrian Arts Center. Coming up, there's more to Broadway shows than music, sets, and costumes. Hear what it's like to design these scenes using light and creativity in Cabaret.
Welcome to the Cabaret. Set in 1930s Berlin, Cabaret tells the story about a young English performer who becomes romantically involved with an American writer.
The journey begins at the brink of World War II as the Nazis are rising to power, and a sleazy nightclub called Kit Kat Club serves as a place for sinister politics.
What makes this one of the great American musicals is the emotional journey that it takes you on. When you get to the end, you didn't think you were ever going to get to that place. And I think that's what's exciting.
Based on a book written by Christopher Isherwood, the 1966 Broadway show inspired numerous productions in London and in New York City, as well as a 1972 film with the same name, starring none other than Liza Minnelli.
The film sort of goes away a little bit from it, but what's great about this is the Sam Mendes, Rob Marshall version of Cabaret. And my understanding is this is the only place that you can see it.
Theater fans will experience an evening filled with beautiful costumes, memorable songs, and sights from a creative lighting team that was nominated for a Tony Award.
I know it's a total cliche to say, but it is amazing just to get nominated. It's super nice to have that kind of recognition from your peers and stuff like that. And you toil away and you toil away, and it's just nice once in a while when somebody says, hey, what you did was kind of cool.
Mike Baldessari designed the lighting for Cabaret and tells us how he created the atmosphere for the actors in one of the scenes.
One of the great things about Cabaret is the lighting transforms where you are. Something like I Don't Care Much is a very pivotal song in the show, and Sally is on the couch and Cliff decides he's going to leave. The MC is above and Sally leaves the room. As soon as she leaves the room, our focus goes up to the MC who's singing I Don't Care Much, and then in that same exact space, like 30 seconds later, Sally walks up again and the door opens and there's Max at the club. So it's the same exact space you were just in, and 30 seconds later, you're in a whole different world.
And you may have seen Mike's work on Saturday Night Live here on NBC6. But when it comes to live theater, it's a little more complicated.
Being a lighting designer for a Broadway musical, if you can light a Broadway musical, you can basically light everything. And I've done television and I've done films, but the real penultimate challenge is really lighting a Broadway musical.
Cabaret, the musical, first started its production in 1966 in Boston as a tryout. Since then, it's won 3 Tony Awards. You can catch Cabaret at the Adrian Arts Center, April 12th through the 17th.
Thank thank you so much for joining us on this special edition of Six in the Mix, previewing the 2015-2016 Broadway season at the Adrian Arts Center. Remember, you can purchase your tickets to these amazing shows by visiting artscenter.org. I'm Roxanne Vargas. We'll see you there at the show.